how much am I able to share here today?
Share anything you want.
Okay.
So they thought you were cheating.
Because they didn't have the equipment to be able to go through the spark plug and check bore and stroke. They put my head measure like, oh my God, he is correct. I made my own fuel. Oh my God, I pissed people off with that. That was bad. I took it a step further. I created different smells that I added to my fuel. I tried to make grape. I succeeded with that. I made cherry. Succeeded with that.
You're like a mad scientist, man. I mean, like...
You're one of the first people to even hear this.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, I'm crazy enough, right? It's electric. I'm like, I drove it in the back of my shop, half throttle. I almost urinated on myself. I was really anti-EV. I have been just an EV whore. It's one of the best feelings in the world, Taro, to have something on paper and a few months you're driving it. I can't explain how gratifying that is.
Today on The Creative Drive, we're talking to a true original. Someone who doesn't just build fast cars, he builds wild ideas and makes them real. You might know him for his 1,000 horsepower minivan, electric Porsche projects, or collaborations with major OEMs like Hyundai and Honda. But behind the viral builds and technical wizardry is a sharp creative mind, an entrepreneur and an engineer with a unique path, from pharmaceuticals to full-blown performance icon. Bisi Ezerioha from Bisimoto Engineering joins me to talk about how he approaches innovation, why content matters for builders, and what's next in the world of performance and electrification. This one's packed with insight and inspiration. Let's get into it. Here's my interview with Bisi from Bisimoto. All right. Bisi Ezerioha. Did I say that right?
Well done.
All right.
Well done.
Okay. Thanks for being on The Creative Drive. I think you're a perfect guest for this podcast because you are one of the most creative people I know in the car building industry here in the world we live in. Welcome to The Creative Drive.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. And thank you so much as well for the kind words. That's very generous of you because you are well connected in our industry, and to say that makes me feel very, very proud. So thank you.
Thanks so much. So Bisi,
yes,
let's start from the beginning. I mean, I know you're a Civic guy, and you've built crazy, Honda Odysseys, and you've worked with Hyundai and Porsche and all these kind of manufacturers as well. But I think people know you pretty much for your crazy builds, yes. But you came here for college, right? Originally from Nigeria. Can you sort of like tell us that beginning story?
Sure, no worries. I've always had great affinity for everything automotive. As a matter of fact, according to my parents, my first word was car as a child. And then ironically, my second word was light, which is kind of interesting because it a little bit ties into what I'm doing nowadays. But growing up in West Africa, in Nigeria, both my parents were scientists. My father is a quite accomplished geologist. My mother, a brilliant biochemist. So myself and my other 5 siblings have always been steered towards everything science when it came to academia. So growing up, I had a lot of affinity for physics. It was my favorite subject. I loved it. But my parents didn't think, being proper African parents that guide children to what their ideal curriculum should be, they didn't think being a physics major would be quite financially beneficial for me. They own a cosmetics factory back in Nigeria, still do. Actually, as a matter of fact, they just sold it last month, which is sad.
Oh.
Anyway, and it's partially my fault. I get into that. So the goal was for me to come to the U.S. to study engineering and go back and take over the family business. My mom, being a biochemist, wanted me to study chemistry, but since I loved everything mechanical, I thought a good compromise would be chemical engineering. Back home, Taro, it's very challenging to get into a good curriculum in school. If you want to study medicine or law or engineering, you had to have very high marks in this examination known as JAMB, okay. Joint Admissions Matriculation Board exam.
In 1954, Honda had been making motorcycles for less than a decade, when it boldly entered the Isle of Man TT races. Fast forward to 1961, Honda swept the podium, earning the top 5 finishes. But Honda racing was just getting started. In 1964, only 2 years into the automotive business, Honda entered Formula One. A year later, Honda took its first F1 checkered flag at the 1965 Mexican Grand Prix with the Honda-developed fuel injection system powering the Honda RA272 to victory. 60 years later, Honda is still going strong. The dedication and innovation that has brought hundreds of victories on the track is in everything Honda builds, because racing has always been at the heart of Honda. Learn more about the latest Honda racing news and innovations at hondaracing.com. Is that like the SAT?
Yeah, it's very similar, but a lot more difficult, and really around the European or English standard with OL and original levels and advanced levels. And I noticed a lot of my cousins, aunties, and uncles, when they want to study a very good major, had a hard time getting the high enough marks to enter university. If you fail, you have to wait another year. Well, without boring you with the grim details, I wanted to test out the exam first so that when I got to the American equivalent of 12th grade, I'd pass. So when I was 14, I registered for the examination, took the exam when I was about almost 15, and I passed for petrochemical engineering.
Oh, you're a genius.
No. I just love science. I studied very hard, passed, and my parents asked me what I wanted to do. I said, I will attend.
Well, so you're a 14-year-old college student, though.
At the time, I turned 15 and got admission. Yeah. And I went to Anambra State University of Technology to study petrochemical engineering. Mm-hmm. At the time in Nigeria, I was the youngest individual to ever attend university.
Wow.
It's been broken by now, but at that time, my parents were so proud I was the youngest in my country.
Yeah.
Went there to study, and honestly, sir, we just didn't have technology. I mean, the books were from the 60s. I just couldn't learn much. So I begged my parents to follow in their footsteps. Mm-hmm. By the way, my parents both studied here in the U.S., in SoCal.
Yeah.
So my dad said he knew this great Jewish community that he went to in his 60s. He knows a family there that could stay with. You may know the story. It's just great. And the city that he sent me to that was wonderful and Jewish in the 60s was Compton. And Compton was very different.
So this was in the 80s, right?
Yeah, 89 right. October is when I arrived.
Things have changed quite a bit since the 60s.
It wasn't the same. And Mrs. Jones, bless her soul, she's no longer with us, was one of those ladies that no matter what happened in her neighborhood, she wouldn't move. No matter how things changed, no matter how socioeconomic opportunities, just went for a different route, she wouldn't leave. This is her home, her neighborhood. She's going to stay there. But that was a blessing in disguise. Me going there, by the way, my dad visited me soon after my arrival and was shocked about how different things looked. I mean, I saw the lights, I saw it all. But that community exposed me to street racing, which was big in Compton at the time. And the fact that I initially had a Nissan 200SX, a lot of people don't know that. That was my first car.
Oh, wow.
It was a Nissan 200SX.
I thought it was
the one that spoke with you?
I thought it was a CRX.
Everyone thought about that, but I'd never raced that. It was the one you opened and it said your door is ajar. It spoke to you. It was really cool. But I got rear-ended a few months after I bought it, and then I opted for a CRX. I really wanted an MR2, AW11.
Yeah.
But I couldn't afford it as a student. So I got this high fuel efficiency 1988 Honda CRX. And with a CRX, being in engineering, at that time I was not at Cal State Long Beach. Interesting story how I got there.
So how old were you at this time, though?
Now I'm here in the U.S. a year and I was about 17.
Okay.
Yeah. And now I'm studying chemical engineering at Cal State Long Beach. And a lot of my peer students had everything from the Corolla FS16 to a few Civics. And they were nice and raced, lowered with aero fins. It was a culture then. Racing was a little difficult at the time. You couldn't call it Bisimoto engineering and buy parts. You had to kind of create your own, make your own thing. And as an engineering student, it intrigued me to be able to use what I learned in fluid dynamics, heat and mass transfer, and try and incorporate that in my vehicles, while also having very strong influences from gurus like John Conciati from AEM, bless his soul, Nick Arias Jr., bless his soul as well, Ed Iskandarian from Iski Cams. All these are people who really spoke with me and shared with me how they were able to extract power in hot rodding in Southern California, and I applied a lot of those concepts to my CRX at the time. Being the biggest influence being John from AEM. So that being said, that's how, really short story, a lot happened between them, but that's how I really got into automotive here in the United States, was my desire to race because of my influences in Compton and figure things out because you just couldn't buy parts. There was nothing available. You had to create my inner valve spring. No, my valve springs for my CRX were inner springs from a V8. Because you couldn't buy, there were no Honda Civic valve springs that you can just purchase.
Yeah.
We heard about some stuff in Japan with Mugen, but we couldn't afford it. We couldn't even get them. So it was really interesting. So a lot to share, but that was just a little synopsis of
well, no one was really doing any racing or tuning of, Civics back then still,
Rare.
right? There was just like, that's how, so guys like you started drag racing Civics, right?
Yes.
And so what was that like in the beginning when everybody else was bringing domestics and you show up, with a Civic?
Very difficult. A lot of, how should I say, weird insults from calling us rice rockets to rice burners. I mean, almost all type of weird slurs were thrown at us. Yeah. We were looked down upon as, these guys who didn't know what they're doing. Their cars were relatively slow. I mean, back then, my first race ever was at the Brotherhood Raceway in Long Beach, Terminal Island, some people called it. My first pass was an 18.6. Do you know how slow 18.6 is?
Yeah.
But by the time Big Willie and Tamiko ended up, closing down the track because the real estate there was just so attractive and the track had to go away, I was running 12.9. So and this was a short period of time. So it was a very huge jump in elapsed times or reduction in elapsed times during that time frame. But it was very difficult. A lot of us, as in Honda Civics, CRX guys, would race, and if they had a failure, they would just quit.
Yeah.
I found pleasure in blowing up my engines. Strange, right? But I derived pleasure in, why did that happen? Why did I drop a valve? How can I prevent that from happening? And it was intriguing, as expensive as it was for me as a student who barely made ends meet because I was working at Circuit City at the time. Wow, I have so many stories for you. I don't know how much time we have.
No, we have plenty.
But nonetheless, it was very difficult. But I was one of those weird enthusiasts or engineers that had more interest in figuring things out than being extremely disappointed with a mishap. Mm-hmm. So if my traction failed, how could I do it? We had 22-inch slicks from Mickey Thompson at the time. How could I make it better? What do I need to do? If I dropped valves, which I did a lot, I never understood that, my valve train, the springs just didn't have the pressure to keep the great orchestration between the lobes of the camshaft, my rocker arms, and my valve train. So when I'd float a valve, the valve would careen out of control, contact my piston, and I'll drop and destroy an engine. Never understood why until I started talking to Ed Iskandarian. He said, valve spring, you need more spring pressure. Well, there's nothing of that size. So I started going through his bin and I found an inner valve spring of a Chevy small block and put that in. And oh my God, it worked. But I lost power on the dyno at AEM. So my valve spring pressure was too much. So I went down and down until I started floating again and went up and found that happy medium. Now, it sounds like a very simple task because I'm just sharing this with you. It's difficult putting valve springs in with retainers and keepers in an engine when you're not pulling the head off. It's a lot of work.
Right.
But I derive pleasure from figuring things out. My curiosity was more important to me than racing. People say you're a good racer because you drive amazingly well. I was even scouted and recruited by American Honda, but my passion wasn't the driving. It was the experimentation.
Yeah. And
driving was the best way for me to realize my experiments and to be able to understand and experience my improvement or lack thereof. And when I say lack thereof, Taro, 80% of my experiments failed. Seriously, I had a very high failure rate. Nowadays, my success rate is higher than my failure rate back then, but I was learning a lot and it allowed me to do a lot of things. It was expensive, but it's that curiosity and that lack of fear of the unknown that pushes me with my organization till today.
Well, that's how a true scientist thinks, right?
Like,
I mean, Edison, right?
Absolutely.
99% is, what was it, perspiration, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
Inspiration.
Yes,
a lot of it comes from hard work and failing, right? And so your motivation was not winning these drag races. It was actually like finding out what doesn't work so you can improve.
Absolutely.
Right?
Improvement, that word,
Yeah.
that was my guiding light. That word was everything. Improvement. Finding ways to be better each time. And the results were wins, records broken, financial resources, partnerships. But my driving force was improvement. Still is.
So how often were you drag racing at this
Oh
time?
my goodness. Will you make jest of me if I told you?
Because you had to fail and then come
Yes.
back and buy parts and
a lot of sleepless nights.
build parts. And
while in school full-time, working part-time and racing. Terminal Island was open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday from the evening starting 4 p.m. until about midnight. Saturdays was open about 1 p.m. until close to 10 p.m. Sundays closed a little bit early. Would you believe that if you ever went to the racetrack any of those days, I was there? While street racing on Tuesday nights. So it was crazy. It was a life for me. It was a passion. It was life. It just felt as important as my academia and my work. I just loved it. Now I think back, as challenging as it was a very good stress reliever. It really was. Mm-hmm. The stresses of work, the stresses of school, because my parents and dad, I know you're listening, mom too, I appreciate you guys, but you were very tough on me. Nigerian parents are very, very, very strict and very hard when it comes to academia, and they expected me to finish very quickly and with high marks. So many times, as you can imagine, you have to take classes in sequence. You have to take, let's say, Chemical Engineering Lab 102 before you take 202. Many times I had to take it out of sequence just to finish quickly. That was a lot of stress for me as a young student. So doing that, taking classes out of sequence, learning, excelling, remaining on Dean's List while racing and working at Circuit City was a lot. Didn't give me much time for anything else, but I enjoyed it tremendously. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't mind going back to those times. It was an enjoyable time.
So where were you working on your cars? Was it in your own garage, or did you have, rent a space or a buddy's? Where were you doing this?
At my friend's house. I had a very good friend by the name of Richard Salvador. He lived in Carson, and I was in Compton. And we met. I was actually looking for a camshaft, and I was told there's this one shop called G-Speed that was right there on Redondo Beach Boulevard. And I went there, met the guy. He sold me a camshaft, installed it. I went home, all my oil puked on the floor. I didn't understand why. Well, he used my old cam seal that had 80,000 miles on it or more and had to replace it. And I went back and he changed it. As he was changing the seal, I was asking him questions and we kind of hit it off, became friends. And he had a very small garage at home with him and his wife, and we'd work in his small garage. And that company, RS Machine, sort of RS Motorworks, kind of brought a lot to the sport compact scene based upon the interaction of I and Richard. As we grew from changing clutches, and by the way, that supplemented my income as well, doing small work for other racers and enthusiasts in the SoCal area, we were able to get a bigger shop, and we really started a whole movement. RS Machine, a lot of people don't know this, was the first facility to commercially have available sleeve blocks for the Honda world. So you think of Darton sleeves, LA sleeve, Golden Eagle, Benson's, all that started out with one gentleman, Mike Coftree, who used to work at Benson's Machine in Orange County, who came to RS Machine and kind of developed and finalized the first sleeve block for Honda engines, which was a weak point in those blocks. The Achilles heel of a lot of inline 4 D series, B series, and H series and Hondas were sleeves cracking when you put a lot of power to them.
Right.
And we're able to rectify that problem. And all that came from our facility.
So how much power were you? So I have a question from TJ here,
Yes,
the single cam Civic. How much
Yes.
power were you making?
Did I finally make or did I start off with?
Start off and
I started
finally
with
make.
on AEM's dyno, roller dyno, which was a Clayton old school water brake. It was 56 wheel horsepower initially. No, 48 wheel horsepower initially on a D series single cam 8 valve HF motor. And then by the time I retired my power plant, I made 236 to the wheels.
Wow.
Naturally aspirated.
NA, huh?
NA.
Wow.
18.4 to 1 compression, 50 DCO SP carburetors. It was just an amazing part. I still have that power plant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
D-stroke crank, large bore, 1530cc. I got protested a lot. People thought I was lying about that.
Right.
At a Nopi event in Palmdale, my head was pulled off because they didn't have the equipment to be able to go through the spark plug and check bore and stroke. They pulled my head, measured like, oh my God, he is correct.
So
And,
they thought you were cheating.
They thought I had the rumor had a 2.0 liter diesel, which is, I don't know how that's possible, but it was literally a 1.5 liter D-series, high compression. I made my own fuel. I was banned quickly. So I ended up going to VP.
Yeah.
That's an interesting story. Oh my God, I pissed people off with that. That was bad.
Well, as a chemical engineer, you're like thinking, right?
Well, it wasn't for a competitive advantage. It was purely economics. We used to buy fuel from Trick at the time. VP was just the how should I say, Saks Fifth Avenue of fuels for us. Right. I was kind of a student. So I knew as a chemical engineering student that fuels weren't that expensive to manufacture. I could use a base fuel from Chevron, like standard 91 octane, add an anti-knock agent like tetraethyl lead or benzene, even toluene in the right combination and create my own high-octane fuel, which would burn slower and allow me to get away with higher compression without qualm. And I did that. And in normal BC fashion, till today, anyone can approach me and ask me about technology, and I always share everything I know, and I keep learning and improving. So people ask, BC, what fuel you on? Your car's fast. Oh, I made my own fuel. I use a Chevron. I put tetraethyl lead and toluene and a little bit of benzene. Non-carcinogen. Don't play around with it, but it's really a lot of fun. And then unbeknownst to me, my peer racers will go and report me to the tower. He's cheating. He has bad race fuel. And then, of course, Mike Ferrer, a great guy, was like, let him do his thing. Mike is an engineer. Let him do his thing. And then because I heard back from Mike that people were protesting, I took it a step further. I went and made some very clever olefins. I used very low chain hydrocarbons, added a little bit of low pH acid to break the chains down, and I created different smells that I added to my fuel. So to piss people off, I tried to make grape. I succeeded with that. I made cherry, succeeded with that. I tried to make chocolate. It smelled really bad. I guess the human band of smell is very narrow. Right. When I changed and I tried to make chocolate, it was horrible. So I didn't do that again. But so you can imagine, I go to Palmdale, LACR Raceway, or Los Angeles County Raceway, and I start my car, and people are protesting me that I make my own fuel, and it smells like grapes. They're really upset. And yeah, Michael had to ban me after that. It was just too much heat.
So are you doing this in your university lab or something?
No, no. I did an experiment in lab once to test the atomization of fuels with carburation, because JC, John Concedo from AEM, convinced me that Weber's and Makunis were the way to go when it came to making power. Not fuel injection. Not that fuel injection was inferior, but the injectors we had access to didn't atomize the fuel as well as we wanted it to make power, while carburetors had this beautiful cloud that came out that was easier to ignite, didn't absorb heat that you needed for combustion to make work on the piston. It didn't absorb it and take away power. It was you can put in a side draft Makuni and pick up, compared to a standard injection, you could pick up 10 to 15% more power. So I want to understand why that was the case, because I'm curious. And I did experiment, saw the result in lab, and I almost got kicked out of school because the lab assistant saw me doing an illegal experiment without permission and reported me to the dean, and we had a meeting. I almost got kicked out. So I wouldn't do it in school. I was blending these fuels in my garage at home.
Wow.
Dangerous. Benzene is a horrible compound. But I did it, and it worked well. I made good power. You know, the irony is, when I was banned from making fuel, I had to now turn to VP and break bread and buy it, and I got faster.
Okay.
Their fuel was better than what I was making. So for all those people protesting, it was actually a detriment. My car gained another 10th and a half on the quarter mile because it was a better fuel. Now I think back, they did have oxygenates in some of their fuels, which made me, have a lot more power. Right. I didn't add any oxygenated compounds to my fuels. I was just standard 91 with my own little concoction for anti-knock, and it worked well. And commercially available fuel, VP, was better for me.
Well, now
but it was a good, right? It was a good story.
You
it was
failed
great.
And you found out, and now you know. Yeah,
absolutely.
You know. So you're like a mad scientist, man. I mean, but you're big on reliability as well, right? You're big on reliability. You talk about that a lot, but you love massive power. I mean, that's like totally opposing each other.
Yes and no. if you have the concept, which I have till today, where you design power plants, you maximize it to failure, and you pull back 30%, you're right there. The nickname Bisimoto was given to me at street races because they're like, this guy's motors, Bisi's motors never blow up. I did, but people just didn't see it. I always experiment and try things. They expired. I fix and find ways to make it better. They're like, oh my God, Bisi's motors, Bisimoto, and they just stuck. A lot of people think when they don't meet me, when they never met me, like, oh, it must be some older Japanese guy. And I'm like, okay, well, I get the Japanese part, but why older? Because you build so many cars. Well, no, I'm far from Japanese. Culture very similar, but I'm not. There was just a nickname that was given to me at the street races, and I just kind of ran with that. And fast forward today, I still use the same name.
What part of the culture do you think are similar?
Respect for elders, commitment to family, honor, respect. These are all characteristics of both cultures that are very, very similar.
I see.
And I find that extremely appealing. Coming to the United States, even being a melting pot, the common U.S. culture is very different from where I'm from. And as I went through school, raced, and started interacting with a lot of my peers who are of Japanese descent, we come to find out that our cultures are very similar in certain aspects. And that's why a lot of my friends, even those I raced with, even I'm with Toyo Tires today. The reason I'm with Toyo Tires is because of Hideki Ueha. And he was a good friend of mine. The person who scouted me and brought me onto American Honda is John Yoshinaga. So all individuals who we got along very, very well because of our cultural similarities. So, above and beyond our passion for cars.
Yeah. Did you have any exposure to Japanese cars or Japanese culture when you were in Nigeria?
None.
Really?
Not one. The most popular vehicle of my youth were Peugeots.
Right.
Believe it or not.
Yeah,
we had a assembly plant in Nigeria. My parents owned my grandfather had a 404, then a 504 GL. My parents had 504s, 505 wagons. Peugeot was the Nigerian mass car. Yeah. It was our Volkswagen Beetle, per se.
Right.
So that being said, that's what I had exposure to. Did we have any Japanese cars? Yes, my parents had, for the factory, a few Toyota Hiaces.
Okay.
My dad had a Pajero for a brief period of time before one of our drivers flipped it. But apart from that, apart from a Pajero, Mitsubishi, and a couple of Hiaces, it's mostly Peugeots.
Wow. Okay.
And Mercedes-Benzes.
Yeah. So when did you start the business Bisimoto, though? That was your nickname, and then you started it. Now you have a shop and a whole brand now. When did you start that?
I would say the genesis of that came back as far as even 93, 94. When, as I created parts for my car and became more and more successful with it, and I go race at Terminal Island, people pay attention. They notice my significant jumps in lower elapsed times, and they would ask me, dude, what did you do you were just running 13.8 last week. You're running 13.5. How did you... Why design this exhaust manifold? Oh, make one for me. Okay, what kind of engine do you have? I have a B series. Okay, I haven't played with those, but I'll see what I can do. They'll drop it off. I'll design something, have a fabricator make it up. We'll test. So it came as far back as the mid to early 90s where I would design components for my own car. People would approach me, and for a small profit, I'd make it for them. And I continued doing that. And it got to a point, I remember, after I graduated from university, I got my first job in pharmaceutical research, doing everything from high-performance liquid chromatography to QC. Didn't quite like the money I made there because us lab rats compared to salespeople, the sales guys made a lot more money. So I defected to sales, killed it there, Taro.
Oh, yeah?
Because I understand the science.
Right.
And I love talking to people. I had a lot of sales experience working at Circuit City. It was a perfect storm. And I bought my own dyno cash just to test things. I had no interest in dyno tuning cars. It's just to test my own cars and figure things out. So as I'm in corporate making a nice six-figure income as a 20-something-year-old and bought my first house, and I'm just doing it.
Right.
All the things I couldn't afford, all the experiments I cannot. Sidebar, I bought my dyno, had it delivered from New Zealand, Dynapack. It arrived on a Friday. I got a small facility in Pomona just to store and test. I did not leave my shop from Friday to no shower, didn't brush my teeth. I stayed in Pomona from Friday to late Sunday night. Didn't leave. experimenting, trying things. That's how crazy I am. Anyway, back to my story.
And then you put on a tie and you're selling pharmaceuticals.
I'm back in pharma.
Monday.
Yeah. And I loved it. I just was so passionate, still am. And long story short, I kept creating parts, designing things. Do you know it got to a point where I started selling so many camshafts, so many exhaust manifolds that it almost rivaled the salary I was making in corporate?
Oh, wow.
And in 2006, my Frank Cali, a gentleman who was a regional director based in Scottsdale, had me on this very nice pathway to go climb the ranks in my pharma company, ended up retiring. And when he retired, and Frank, if you're listening, forgive me for sharing this story, but him and his wife, Marilyn, invited I and my girlfriend at the time to a dinner in Palm Springs. We went there, and Frank is this very debonair Italian guy, loves his Tuaca, drives a classic Porsche 911. He was everything I wanted to be growing up. He retires, we go to dinner, and he wanted to go Dutch. This is a guy who I looked up to who was very financially stable, always took care of us. And I'm like, Frank, Dutch? He said, well, I'm retired now. I kind of have to watch my pennies. And I'm like, ooh, that's not the life I want. I want to have a comfortable financial life. And then his replacement was this young lady who became an RD, and she was not a good leader. So at the time, someone in my position would either go to a different department or go to another company. But I decided to take a risk. I wasn't married at the time, didn't have any kids to my knowledge. And then I decided to take the plunge and leave corporate and kind of pursue my passion in everything automotive. So in 2006, after saving up, because I was good, I've always been good at saving resources, saved up enough money to live in austerity, not comfortably, but in austerity for 2 years while I explore this automotive realm.
And you still had your shop in Pomona.
I still had a small, where I just store my car and do my dynos, right? And that was going to be my first facility. Very small, 980 square foot facility, very small. My CRX was parked there. I had my dyno there. I didn't have a table or desk. I literally had the box of the dyno as my table, and I had a fax machine. Remember those? And I had one there and a small phone, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I quit. My parents were livid. Why would you leave this well-paying job to become a mechanic, right? Like, why would you do that? And I did it. And then came the economic downturn in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
So that was almost the worst time for me to do that, but I pushed through. And I had a very nice niche where I kept selling my exhaust manifolds, developing things for different platforms. I opened my services dyno tuning because I did my own dyno tuning as well. It was almost the heyday of sport compact racing at the time as well. I was recruited by American Honda, started doing the NHRA circuit, Nopi, IDRC, Battle of Imports, traveling the country, great sponsors, got a trailer. And my facility went from that 980 square foot in Pomona. I even had accounts with TRD where they'll bring in and rent my dyno. Then I went to Chino to a 2,000 square foot facility. Then I went to Ontario to a 5,200 square foot facility. Then now I'm 15,000. We kept growing. And my 2-year mark, which I gave myself, where if I didn't succeed, I'll go back to corporate, elapsed. And I kept growing and growing. And fast forward to today, we now do so much.
Yeah.
Still performance-wise with different types of propulsion, different marquees of, you come to our facility, you see VW Bugs, Porsches, you see Rolls Royces, Hondas, Hyundais, Nissans, you name it.
Yeah.
The team and I, once again, we're not afraid of the unknown. You can provide me a Peterbilt tomorrow to make fun, and we'll attack it and make it as amazing as we can, and it brings us more business and more opportunities. So I'm very, very lucky, very fortunate to have a great team and to be in an industry that allows me to remain creative. And it's one of the best feelings in the world, Taro, to have something on paper and a few months you're driving it. I can't explain how gratifying that is. A concept to reality within months, and you're experiencing something that was just a design on Fusion 360 or scratch on a piece of paper. It's just amazing. It's amazing indeed.
So you work with many OEs, right, for their SEMA cars and things like that. So how does that happen? Like, do you pitch these crazy ideas to them, or do they come and say, "We've seen your crazy ideas, build something for us"? How does that happen?
Combination of the two. My very first SEMA project was in 2010. When John Yoshinaga, who recruited me into American Honda to race for them semi-pro, said that, hey, Bisi, we know you like to build crazy stuff. We have a CRX replacement that we're calling a CRZ or CRZ, however you want to pronounce it, that would love for you to do your magic to. Now, at the time, I already started building a few Porsches here and there for privateers, and Porsche came out with a hybrid that made close to 500 horsepower. It was my goal to make something that surpassed that power goal that was also hybrid. John did make it very clear to me that I'm not to swap the engine, we're to keep the original LEA1 engine, which is a 1.5 liter setup, which I've always been successful in creating massive amounts of power from small displacement, high RPM engines. And I was more than happy to take upon the task. It was very difficult, but we had months. We had about 9 months to build this car with access to a pre-production vehicle at first and then a production car, which I still have in-house, by the way. And I really addressed all the shortcomings on the petrol side of the integrated motor assist power plant. Treated crankshaft, custom rods, custom pistons, sleeve block, headwork, valve train, camshafts, while leaving the electric motor assist as is, as factory. Okay. And we made 533 horsepower with that. Wow. And when it hit the SEMA floor, especially, God bless the guys from Honda Performance, but they had a 200 horsepower one and we had a 500 horsepower one. And we had a ton of attention from the likes of the New York Times to USA Today. And then other manufacturers saw that launch of that car and how did he do that? That's how reps from Hyundai came over to us. Dodge came over, SRT, to even talk to us as well. And then as years progressed, we started doing crazy builds for Hyundai as well. Yeah. We did Odyssey minivans, 2012 Civic, 2013 Accord. We did a Genesis Coupe, Electra GT, you name it. Just from building that one CRZ for Honda, attracted other OEMs to us. And what they typically do every year, fast forward to today, same thing, they'll ask us for a request for a proposal. We have this new quote unquote model. What could you do to make it exciting for the masses? Not only for SEMA, but for other auto shows. SEMA is a very great launch pad for us, but anyone who follows us does see this pattern where our cars don't go to SEMA and disappear. They go to many other shows, auto shows and whatnot. They're driven hard, raced hard. We're big at not only the aesthetics, but also the performance of the vehicles reliably as well. And it allows us to create a lot of good products for them as well, for the masses, to allow us to really customize and enjoy our vehicles and for enthusiasts to make them their own.
Yeah. So take that crazy concept and make it a reality is basically what you do.
Yes, sir.
One of the crazy builds that you've done is the Cayman R, the center seat one. How did that happen?
That's very interesting. There used to be an event known as California Festival of Speed. It was a Porsche specific or centric event that happened at the Fontana Raceway in Fontana, of course, AAA Raceway in Fontana.
Yep.
And I was sitting one day with Matt Crook, who was one of the founders for 1552 Wheels, who was one of our wheel partners at the time. I shared a story with him on how I was invited by Porsche to the same raceway to test out a few cars. Porsche does this not only to get exposure, but also to entice us enthusiasts to buy their cars. So I had the opportunity to race on the racetrack the new Panamera at the time, which was amazing. Felt like a coupe, even though it was a four-door sedan. The Turbo S and the Cayman R.
Yeah.
And of all the cars, I was most impressed with the Cayman.
Yeah.
It handled, to me, it felt better than a 911, but without the power.
Well, that's the whole idea, right? Yeah.
But it was amazing for giving a proper driver's car. I loved racing that thing. But the lack of power is what I didn't find appealing. So I went and bought a 987S and turbocharged it myself, put twin turbos on it. And for my opinion, I built the perfect Porsche. Mid-engine, tossable, powerful. I made 480 horsepower to the wheels with that, and it was a blast. So I'm sitting with, back to Festival Speed, I'm sitting with Matt at our booth there, and I'm telling you how excited I am about this Cayman I put together, and it's so much fun. He said, Bisi, it'd be cool, and I know you could do this. Have you thought of making the mid-engine Cayman even more exciting? Let me maybe put a seat in the middle. I'm like, I'm crazy enough, right? That's a smashing idea. I'd love to take credit for that concept, but it was totally Matt. I said, Matt, I'm going to build it. And I'm going to do it with a platform that's lightweight, and fairly cost effective. So you know that Cayman R you referred to?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a 986 Boxster.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a Boxster chassis, which I had no qualm cutting up.
Yeah.
Reinforcing it significantly with a lattice of cage material, putting a seat in the middle, turbocharged it mid-engine. Then I made a digitized scan of my Cayman and created a carbon fiber roof that goes on it. So from afar, it looks like a Cayman.
Yeah.
It's very Cayman-esque. The giveaway are the side vents. It's that typical Boxster vent that's kind of large in size, not slender and long like you would see on a Cayman. But most people think it's a Cayman. It looks just like a Cayman.
Yeah.
And this thing is forgive me for tuning my own horn, but it's the best car I've ever driven.
Oh, really?
And when Jay Leno drove it on his show, he also reflected my sentiments when he drove it at Streets of Willow. Like, this is better, he said, than his P1.
Nice.
So he loved that vehicle. It was just, I remember turn 3, that's such a scary turn. And first time I drove it, I drove very slow at streets. Okay, I had a test and tune. I was just driving around. Okay, this is good. And I started having fun. Before I knew it, I lost myself. And here I am, turn 3 coming up. I'm at full speed, terrified. Like, I'm supposed to slow down here. I'm going to crash. So I kind of loosen my body. I'm going to go off the track. I know I'm going to go off. It hits the turn like it was on rails. I'm like, I built something. I was screaming. I go back to pits. One of my fabricators, Sam, he jumps in it too. Like, he wouldn't get off the track. It's such a fun car. Fast forward to today, I've built 3 of those. Mattel purchased 1 from us. Mm-hmm. I did it in the German colors. I have a red, yellow, and a black. Or more a gold color. And the gold one, Mattel bought from us. The black one, I'm now converting to electric.
Oh, so
I'm doing electric center seat, mm-hmm. which I'm going to do a ton of content comparing both same power. I'm going to compare the petrol one, twin turbo, which is really on E85, because I'm a big advocate of renewable fuels for high performance and fun. So I won't have as much guilt. An electric version. And I have an idea how the competition is going to turn out, but I think it'll be good content nonetheless. So I'm going to see what happens with the two. I'm going to autocross both. I'm going to road race both. I'm going to drag race both.
All right.
And publish the findings. So it should be nice. Exciting.
So you're a drag, guy,
yes.
right? Drag racing guy.
Yes.
Where and how did you learn to, set up your car for a track and, braking and turning and things like that?
That's a very interesting story. And I'm glad you asked that. When I first started road racing, and I had to do that only because I started delving into the Porsche marquee. And unfortunately, Porsche guys aren't drag racers. They love the tarmac. They love the road race.
Right.
The closest thing maybe autocross, but they just love road racing.
Right.
And the first time I road raced was my Cayman. Mm-hmm. And it was for a test and tune where KW was there and a company, it was Carbon Rev. Carbon Rev is a great company that manufactures very lightweight, full carbon wheels for the likes of Ford and Ferrari. And they had a tuner series for enthusiasts for the GTR and Porsche, and they wanted me to give them some feedback and testing on that. So I went there, and Taro, honestly, I was driving it like, I was pretty much drag racing at streets and then using the corners of the return road. So I was a very slow driver because I'd floor it in the straights and then slam on the brakes and then turn and then floor it again. It was horrible. And it would upset the car. My fabricator, one of my fabricators at the time, still do some work with him. Sam Rothschild is his name. I met him through tuning. He did a lot of Honda Challenge racing and he came to me as a tuner for his setup. Okay. He taught me really to drive better. Then another gentleman by the name of AJ, who does a lot with Toyota, another engineer, taught me that smooth is faster, which didn't make sense to me, but he was 100% correct. Being a smooth driver made me a much faster road racer. So, long answer to a short question, my peers, my friends who road race taught me how to take some of the advantages of drag racing, but transferring it to road racing, and how being a smoother, more articulate driver made me a faster driver. Mm-hmm. Not brute, floor it, slam it, parachute, turn on the return road. So yeah, that's how they came to be.
And so you built, NA, you went to, turboing, and then hybrid, right? And then you said electric,
Yes.
right? So we saw that, 639 horsepower, right? The 930 EV, right?
That's correct.
So I just saw you at Airwater this past weekend.
That's correct.
How did that happen? Like, why are you so intrigued by EVs now? And you have Moby, obviously, the famous Moby.
I have actually quite a few 935 tribute cars,
Mm-hmm.
have quite a few EVs. I even drove a Honda Prologue here today. Taro, if we had this conversation as recently as 2018, if you brought up EVs to me, I'd probably walk out of your studio. I was really anti-EV. And I used every platform that I had access to bash, speak ill of, and just talk about my discontent with everything electric. And why? Not that I had experience with any EVs. I had none. The closest thing was my hybrid, which I paid, as I shared earlier, more attention to the petrol side of things. Didn't really do much with the electric integrated assist.
Mm-hmm.
I just regurgitated what I heard from media, from my peers who were enthusiasts who also didn't like EVs. I talked about how EVs were for individuals who wore hemp sandals and were tree huggers and didn't care about performance. And look at the Leaf, look at the EV1, that was horrible, what a failure. I didn't think it had anything to do with performance. I thought it was just gross. And I had a friend of mine, David Little, who was a bank manager at my local U.S. bank, where I had my accounts for my company. And he had a Model S, and he'd come by like, Bisi, I think you'll like this car, come ride with me. I literally told David, I'm not sitting in your car. I have no EVs are stupid. Soulless machines, toasters, microwaves. I was just vile with this. I have a show that continues to today, a Tech Tuesday show I do on my Instagram channels. I've now extrapolated that to TikTok and also YouTube Live. And even then, if someone brought EVs, I'll block them. Like, I was really venomous against it. Until in late 2016, I believe, 2016, 2017, I built a car for Harman Kardon. So Harman Kardon is a partner for Hyundai Motors America for their audio systems. And they were looking for a builder to build something for their show at CES, their booth at CES, which is at the Hard Rock, but it was part of CES. And I built a 700 horsepower in normal BC fashion Tucson. Took a standard 190 horsepower Tucson, turbocharged it, built engine, manual transmission, normal Bisimoto, because my CRX is blue. So I kind of had a electric blue color mixed up for me that I called Bisimoto blue. So a lot of my high profile cars had that color. So this was another blue car with white wheels, reminiscent of my CRX and my wagon I built and all that fun stuff. Put on display, they adorned it with their Harman Kardon sound system. It sounded like a club. It was amazing, but it had the Bisimoto level of power and panache. Turbo, under the hood, chromed out, beautiful, powerful, fun. And the team at Harman gave myself and my team access to CES because of my dedication to their booth. I went to CES, Taro. Honda was there. Hyundai was there. Ford, Porsche, all of my partners. And the booths were amazing. Much more budgets, bigger. Honda's booth was a story building inside the convention center. Right. I didn't recognize any of the people in marketing. Right. Their budgets looked way bigger. Now, mind you, I've been building cars for OEMs for auto shows and SEMA. Right. And each year, on the petrol side at least, our budgets were getting smaller. I was asked to do more and more for less and less.
Well, now they don't even display at auto shows, right?
And we started seeing this writing on the wall, like, wait a minute, my budgets are shrinking and I'm asked to do more to create, I always have to outdo myself every year. CES, look at what's going on here. And guess what cars were in the booths, including even demos from Toyota, EVs. These are concept cars that are electric. And I said, yes, I hate these things. Yes, they're dumb. But look at where my peers are going. Look at where my partners are going. If I want to remain relevant and keep servicing them, whether I like it or not, I need to learn this technology. Because I foresee a time when I have to build these or else I'm going to be a dinosaur and they won't recruit my services anymore.
That's the innovator in you, right?
I had to.
Yeah.
Despite my discontent. How much am I able to share here today?
Share anything you want.
Okay. I will try and protect the innocent as much as I can. But people may deduce based upon some of the clues I'll give in this story. For SEMA, I've also built cars for some of my other technical partners. Some really nice, from NGK to K&N, a lot of brands for SEMA and some other shows. Well, this particular brand, I'll try to protect them. I was supposed to build a twin-turbo 935 for them. And the gentleman who was head of marketing was always generous to us and allowed me the opportunity to build really magnificent cars for this brand. And the only caveat is, by the time budgets come my way, I found it out, I was one of those guys who scrambled last minute to get cars done, painted, built. We're barely driving into the show. We may sometimes even push the car into the show because we just didn't have enough time.
Yeah. But
the fact I wanted to build a twin-turbo 935 Tribute using our original Kramer body, I wanted to make this spectacular. So it was important to me to put the cart in front of the horse, meaning I needed to build this car before I received the budgets to be able to make it on time and make this car absolutely spectacular. Mm-hmm. So the gentleman, we had a handshake because we've been building cars for them for years, and we had this very nice handshake that, hey.
This was for SEMA show?
For SEMA.
Okay.
For SEMA.
Yeah.
So we're supposed to build this car for SEMA 2019. It's supposed to be a twin-turbo, sequential gearbox, air-cooled monster. Yeah. Excited. Well, the gentleman who handshook on this, who was going to give us a very healthy budget to do this build, ended up getting let go from the company for embezzlement of funds. Yeah. So what did that do to me? I already ordered this body.
Right.
I already have the chassis. It's in paint. I've already invested north of $40,000 in this chassis already. I have a body in white, almost done in the paint shop, sitting with no budgets and nothing. So what do? I haven't really shared this story. This is you're one of the first people to even hear this.
Okay, great.
And
this is good.
I had this body sitting, and I have this concept where I need to kind of figure out what I'm going to do with an electric powertrain. I need to do something here.
Yeah. So you're high and dry.
I'm high and dry. I'm in debt with this car. I have nothing. I put all my money, a lot of my money into this, and I also want to build this EV. I don't know what to do. That weekend, as I'm pondering what to do with this body, I had this bad news and what to do with this electric route. I came up from CES, what's going on. I went to an event at Hoonigan, the Irwindale Raceway, no longer with us now.
Yep. And
they had this burn yard where they do burnouts and so on and so forth. And I need to go to this event. But in the morning, there was an event at Pekla. So Pekla is the Porsche Experience Center in Carson. Mm-hmm. So I drive my blue twin turbo to Pekla, and I see right in front of the door this beautiful silver 912. Gorgeous, well restored, gorgeous car. And the deck lid's open, and from the deck lid are emanating bright orange wires. That's interesting. What the heck? So I go up there and I look. It's electric. I'm like, I was just thinking about this earlier today. Mm-hmm. So I look for the owner. Find him. Great guy, Ian, a voice actor. And then Jago, he has all these great, shows he's on. And he's telling me, there's this company called EV West, and they did this kit for me. I love it. And he was probably on display at Pekla right on that walkway that they put all the premium cars to. I'm like, I love your car. It's great. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll call these EV West guys and buy some components, pick their brain. Fast forward to later in the afternoon, I swap cars. I take my minivan, my 1,000 horsepower minivan. I go to the burning yard, and I'm watching. Everyone's burning out, and this BMW comes out, and it's really quiet. I'm like, okay, that's weird. It's an M3 with a nice livery, like a checkered flag livery, silver with green and yellow livery, and all I see is smoke. Taro, when I say smoke. This thing is burning out like crazy. Yeah. Just smoke out more than all these LS swapped cars. And it's like, you don't hear it. You just see he's burning, smoke drifting. Yeah. I'm like, what the? That must be electric.
Yeah.
He pulls out. I go straight there. I meet Michael Bream. I talk to him like, Michael, tell me about your car. And he's generous. He walks around the car, tells me about it. I'm like, I want to build an electric car. I need to come talk to you. He's like, oh, we've done electric Porsches too. Come visit us in San Diego. That week I drive down there. And then he drives me around. The car had the Porsche had was a little glitchy, but it was exciting. It was really, really quick. And I said, I need to build this. So I want to buy your best components. I want to try this out. And he gave me the notion that he'll sell me components, but he should really build it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I want to understand. Teach me technology. I want to understand. And my great guy, we're great friends now, wonderful individual. He did treat it like a little bit of black magic. Like, hey, it's very complicated. I'm like, give it to me. I just give it to me. I want to. He said, just drop the car off here. So I bought all the components that he wanted me to purchase that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted something really fun, so I recruited services of a gentleman by the name of what's Chase's last name? He had a controller at the time, very expensive, like a $15,000 controller for Tesla drive units. So I recruited Jason's assistants to, because I couldn't code, I didn't know how to build controllers, and so I bought his controller, got an onboard charger, batteries, contactors, some insight from Michael, even though he was not very open to sharing with me what to do. Then Jason he's like, I'm just sending you a controller. I can tell you how to put this together. I started calling my OEM friends. I called Hideki from Hyundai. Mm-hmm. He's now left Toyo, now at Hyundai. Call him. He gives me some insights. I meet a great gentleman who worked at Karma. Amazing individual. He ended up opening a company known as Rosant. Mm-hmm. So Andrew is his name. And Andrew from Karma kind of helped me a ton, teaching me about pre-charge and high voltage, and how to shield certain wires and how to connect to onboard chargers. So with my peer engineers, give me some insights, buying some components from Michael, getting a controller from Jason, I put together this component and installed it in said 935 Tribute. By the way, I hated building this because even though I was excited about learning, it was still an EV.
Yeah.
So I hated it.
Yeah.
Mid to mid-late, almost SEMA time, 2019, I finished the car with half the battery pack. So I built a 32 kilowatt hour setup, lightweight, small. If you drive like a human, you can maybe get 140, 150 mile range. If you drive like me, maybe 100, a little over 100 mile range. But I only had half the battery pack connected. Mm-hmm. No BMS, by the way.
Yeah.
Now I think back, I'm surprised I didn't burn my shop down. With half the battery pack, less than 800 amps, I drove it in the back of my shop, half throttle. I almost urinated on myself. It was the most amazing experience. Mind you, I built 1,000 horsepower minivans, 1,000 horsepower twin turbo Porsches, air-cooled, water-cooled. I've done it all.
Was it the instant torque?
The torque?
Yeah.
Do you know I was breaking axles and laughing?
Yeah.
I'm back to my heyday of Honda tuning where I break stuff and I'm excited. I'm snapping axles, didn't understand why, but all I knew was I'll put another stub in and I keep going. Taro is the most amazing. And I'm thinking about it like it's yesterday. It was the most amazing. And then it wasn't quiet. Obviously, me playing with driving or experiencing other EVs, there's a lot of sound deadening. The Kramer K3 has a direct open aperture in how I built in my car as well, from the compartment into the cockpit. So I heard this supercharger like whine. So is this,
yeah.
And the torque and this, and I'm a drag racer. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Immediately overnight, I became an advocate. Then when I finished the build, it was even faster. I tested 0 to 60s. It was 206. I now have to slick it down. By the way, this is my first build.
Yeah.
Right? And because it was a bit of a hodgepodge of Bisimoto ingenuity with insight from Karma engineers, Hyundai engineers, components from Michael, components from Jason, it was a bit of a hodgepodge. Even as I look back now, I haven't changed much on the car. Mm-hmm. Except for I've updated some battery cells. I've updated I now have a BMS from Orion. I did update my charger. My charger was horrible. I have fast charging on it because I had a very bad experience at a rally. So I drive my cars in rallies. I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. Unlike a lot of EV conversions you may see that are a little high profile, you will see me on the 405, on the 105, on the 10, on the 60. You see me in San Diego. I drive my cars everywhere. I drove to Airwater.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the rain, which I would never do again. On slicks. Right. I push my cars hard. I'm big on data acquisition. I'm big on improvement. as I look to my old technology, I'm like, what was I smoking when I was building this? But it's still very efficient, still great. My vehicles now are vast improvements compared to my very first one. And overnight, sir, I became this advocate. Yes, I lost some followers because people are like, what happened to our BC? But I encompass all. I didn't leave the petrol scene. As a matter of fact, I'm building for, should I be sharing this now? I'll share with you. I'm building for SEMA a couple of petrol cars. I had a petrol one for a client last year as well. I still do petrol builds, but I'm still very big on renewable fuels. As synthetic fuels come our way, I'll be a huge advocate and embracing of that. But right now, I'm big on ethanol-based fuels, alcohol-based fuels, because they're renewable and very nice and not as detrimental to the environment. But I do a combination of the two. I have been just an EV whore, for lack of a better word. I just love the torque, the acceleration, and you may think I'm crazy, and you may have to drive one of my cars to experience what I'm speaking of, but I have a better connection with the tarmac with my performance EVs. I do.
Really?
I have a Model 3 Standard Range Plus. When I drive it, it is very appliance-like. Yeah. So I don't really fault a lot of people who feel that all EVs feel like a Model 3 base. On the same token, I give them very little rope to hang themselves with because it's almost like judging all petrol cars with a RAV4.
Yeah.
You drive a Toyota RAV4, great cars. They're petrol, but they don't really invoke a lot of excitement. So to have a blanket or paint a white brush that all EVs are crappy or like soul because you've experienced a Leaf or a Model 3 or Model Y, you have to drive one of our Bisimoto performance EVs. The feedback is tremendous. My K3V, which is the gray, slate gray and pink, Team Gozzy, I would just say homage vehicle. Team Gozzy, it was actually a Japanese team, very successful in Group 5 that raced Kremers. And since I have a Japanese background with my Hondas and building, I want to pay tribute to them and what they've done because they're a Japanese team successful with German cars. I have a Japanese building background and I'm also driving German cars. I really want to shed some spotlight on that team and what they've done and give them some homage. So that car really looks a lot like their vehicle. Theirs is white and pink. Mine is like a slate gray Porsche color with a brilliant fluorescent pink. That vehicle has mechanical brakes, just like you would in race cars.
Right.
Very analog. I have a sequential shifter from Quaife to initiate gear.
Yeah.
I have standard gauge. It feels like a classic Porsche, smells like a classic Porsche when you sit inside, just doesn't leak, and is amazingly quick, just amazing. That car, the feedback from the tires, you hear the pebbles, you can feel the squeal, you can know when you're pushing the car. It's just, I feel better connection, almost like my petrol Porsches, the engine sounds dampened my feedback from the tarmac. You feel more, you hear more, everything's amplified because you don't have that petrol engine, you don't have that hum, that vibration. It's uncanny. You have to drive it. And as people who have driven my cars, by the way, a majority of the cars in my shop are people who came in for petrol builds, drove the K3V, and like, shut up and take my money. I want this now. Really? That's how amazing it is. And that's my very first build. Fast forward today, I've had significant improvements and it's even better and more exciting today than ever.
So this was about, what, 7-8 years ago when you got hooked on EVs?
I would say about my hooking on EVs was 2019. So a short 5-6 years ago. Yeah. My exposure to my curiosity around electric propulsion was when I went to CES, and that was 2016, 2017. I think January 2017.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, 8 years ago.
But at the time, I had no idea how much fun it was.
Right.
I just thought, from a business perspective, you better learn this or else your OEMs are going to leave you.
Yeah.
You won't be able to have any more contracts. And yeah, it's been great.
So you talked about Tech Tuesday, right? So
yes.
You do, I've seen a couple of those, and you do it on Instagram Live mainly, right? And you do it on YouTube now.
YouTube and TikTok as well.
So how important is content creation for you, and connecting with your fans live through Instagram?
It is extremely important. Content creation is paramount. Now, a lot of people look at it as a way of revenue. That is a benefit, side benefit. Some people think it as a way to become more popular and to feed an ego. That's nice. I'm giving back. When I create content, when I do Tech Tuesday in particular, I'm trying to be that person I needed when I was younger. Earlier on, I told you that I had the likes of John Concialdi, Ed Iskandarian, Nick Arias Jr. These are people who really helped me with insight on technology and show me the ropes of hot rodding. John Concialdi really is the main guy who helped me because, Taro, when I came to America and I didn't know much about cars, I went to shops, including the G-Speed where I met Richard Salvador. People would really shun me. No one really wanted to tell me. I wasn't all about, let me drop off my CRX and give you a load of cash and work on it. I was curious. I want to understand, how do camshafts work? Why is that important?
Right.
Why should I go with bigger valves? Why is 91 octane superior to 87? What is the purpose of porting your heads? Why high compression?
Yeah.
What is stroking? People literally would shun me, like, get out of here, kid. They wouldn't tell me.
Right.
JC did. He said, come here. Oh, come on, let me tell you what. So I had this weird thing inside where I felt horrible about people not wanting to help me. And then I also felt the need to help others and be that person I needed. So my Tech Tuesday came as a result without compensation. And by the way, it's helped me tremendously. Television shows have found me from that.
Right.
Me being a myth buster was discovered by Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
From watching my Tech Tuesday. Producers were watching, like, this is who we want.
Oh, okay.
And that's not why I did it. I did it because I want to give back. I want to be that person. Anyone can come on that show, ask me anything about my technology in the past, what I'm working on currently, and I share everything. My peers in the industry have even given me qualm, like, BC, stop telling people industry secrets. I'm like, it doesn't matter, because what I know today, I didn't know yesterday. Tomorrow, I will learn even more. Technology continues to improve, and I'm not afraid to share everything I know, because I'm going to learn more and experience more in the future.
What are some of the craziest questions you've had on that show?
People have asked me to, or for example, in a minivan, to break down exactly how I did it, or to do a full dyno tuning session of the minivan live. Show me how you do it and what you do live, which I have no qualm doing. Is just very challenging to set everything up to explain as you're tuning what you're doing. But you know what? I do share with them. Without showing firsthand, I do share my tuning secrets, how I do it, so on and so forth. So that's pretty much the craziest thing. How do you do it? Walk me through it. Show me. It's almost like building it for them for free. Just show them the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's the craziest question I've received. But I get a lot of good questions. Why do long rods? Why is that key?
Yeah.
How did it feel when you got banned making your own fuel? What did you put in your own fuel? Things like that, you know?
So we'll start to wrap up.
It seems like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know, this is great stuff, but we got unfortunately, we have to start wrapping up. Where do you see Bisimoto like 5 years from now?
That's a great question. And that changes so much. No matter what, we will continue to exist in the automotive scene. Going to a lot of events, from Air Water to even the ACT Expo that happened this week in the Anaheim area, I see ourselves continue to push the envelope in amazing, fast, enjoyable technologies, but doing it in a cleaner manner. So I foresee in the next 5 years, Bisimoto creating more of a, I wouldn't say Singer is a good one, but maybe where we have limited edition vehicles that are fun and very clean to drive, while also exploring technologies to other masses, like battery technology and so on and so forth. I really see us pushing a lot of battery tech in the future, whether for BEVs or hybrids.
Okay,
that's where I see us going.
So your business is mainly creating cars for individual clients and
individuals
also
and organizations.
OEs.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, that's really cool. So we do have a couple segments here where we will finish off this conversation. This is a rapid fire section with our guest. Cue the music. Go
ahead.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Turbo or NA?
Naturally aspirated.
Drift or grip?
Grip.
Car you'd buy if money was no object?
I would build one myself. I'd buy my own Bisimoto. I want to build a 917 with all future technologies, including creature comforts. No expense spared.
Great answer. Dumbest excuse you've heard from a car builder?
My parts didn't arrive.
Okay. Theme song of your career?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one.
Something from Compton, maybe? Or
I was going to say, there's a Drake song. Forgive me seeing anything Drake, but there's a Drake song about 100 miles an hour. That's how I feel sometimes. I think it's a good theme song.
All right, that's a good one. Weirdest thing a fan asked you to sign?
Their breasts. That was in Illinois at the Joliet Raceway. This lady came up. It was raining too at the drag strip, and she literally pulled down her shirt and said, "Sign me," which I did to my girlfriend's chagrin at the time. So.
All right. What's more dangerous, Bonneville or a gas station burrito?
Gas station burrito. That's a great question.
What's the most useless skill you'd like to master? It could be useless or useful skill. New skill that you'd like to master.
Useless, though.
Yeah. Something you just want to learn just for the heck of it.
Snowboarding.
Okay, good. Which actor would portray you in a movie?
Someone who's not even born yet. Let me see. But current actor. Ooh, you're really good. That's a good question. I would say, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. If you weren't a car builder, what job would you have? Kind of easy because we've talked about this a little bit, but.
So if I wasn't who I am today, and I were a car builder, what job would I have? Design. More propulsion design.
Yeah. So do you think you would have stayed in pharmaceutical, or would you have eventually quit and gone to
No
cars?
matter what, my calling has always been automotive.
Yeah.
I think I would have quit. As a chemical engineer, I did have the opportunity to explore internships in Moby and Arco. I didn't find it appealing sitting in a room looking at gauges all day.
Yeah.
I love automotive technology. I probably should have been a mechanical engineer.
All right. Great answers. All right, we're at our final segment.
Oh.
Get the music going. Yeah. All right, this one is called "Who's Boostin' It Right Now?" This is so great for you because we're talking to Bisi. Who's boosting it? This is a segment where we're spotlighting creators who are killing it right now, who are like doing good, boosting it right now. Creator, who's boosting it right now?
Wow. I like what Vin Tra's been doing, but Vin has been doing some great things. However,
he's coming on as a guest pretty soon.
Good.
Yeah.
Andrea. I'll say Vin.
Vin?
He's come a long way. He's doing some good things.
Yeah.
I saw him at Air Water.
Yeah.
Vin Tra has come from someone who's behind the scenes at Hoonigan to really push an envelope.
Yeah.
I like what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I'll say that.
Yeah, great answer.
I
think so too. I think he's got another level to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I've got a couple of levels.
Yeah.
He's one to watch.
Yes. Brand. Which brands are boosting it right now?
I would say automotive. I like what Porsche is doing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I like what Honda is doing as well, but Porsche is really encompassing the youth while keeping a strong hold on the financially stable older crowd. And from art cars to music to social to influencers to people like myself to even, they had I don't know if you know, but there were a lot of Porsche executives at Airwater this weekend. From their big events to small grassroots events, they are killing it. Yeah. And it's a brand that we need to watch. They're being very creative. They're putting resources where they need to go. And despite what's going on with the political climate nowadays, I think they're persevering and do extremely well. I'm very impressed with what that brand is doing. Really impressed.
Great. I agree with you too.
Thank you.
Event. Last question. So event. Which events are killing it right now?
You know what's weird? You may think I'm crazy, but I went to this small grassroots event in LA recently called Brekkie.
Brekkie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not very popular.
Yeah, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
But these guys, there was an event that was at this doghouse, small storage facility in the greater LA area, more like Santa Ana. I couldn't park. I mean, they gave me a wonderful location for the Moby X right in front of their facility. The attendance, there were not hundreds, thousands of cars at this event. All different marquees, all different brands. I love what these guys are doing. And so that's on the grassroots side.
Yeah.
On the more professional side, the Peterson Museum. What is going on with these guys? They
suddenly got it.
Killing it. This is not the Peterson of yore. Yeah. These guys, whether it's a JDM event that happened this past weekend, to a lowrider event, to Porsche, to high-end, to exotic. What is going on with the Peterson? I love you guys. What you're doing, keep it up. They're doing a
they
good
are
job.
Really embracing the car culture
yes,
now.
They
and they're sort of like coming. They're getting it. All right. Bisi, last question.
Yes.
We ask all of our guests. What is your creative drive?
I did mention that earlier on. It's curiosity. Really just remaining that curiosity children have when they're born, infants. I'm fortunate enough to where my parents didn't squash that out of me. My father encouraged me, instead of breaking things, take your time, understand how you took this apart to put it back together. That creativity and innovation is what drives me. And everything else, the fame, the resources, they're all byproducts. Me remaining creative and innovative in our scene is what drives me. And it's something that will never change until I leave this planet.
Awesome. Thank you, Bisi. Congratulations on your success. I love what you're doing. Just keep at it, man, and keep being busy, man.
The best is yet to come.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Creative Drive, where we offer listeners a candid look into the minds of automotive creators and their journeys. The Creative Drive is available on all podcast platforms, and we have more awesome guests lined up for you guys, so please subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. If you're interested in partnering with us, or if you have any feedback, please email us at podcast@racer.com or DM us in our Instagram. The Creative Drive is produced by Molly Binks from Racer Studio, directed by TJ Keon, creative director George Tamayo, and edited by Andrew Snyder. We've got New Nick, OG Nick, and Morgan on the socials. I'm your host, Taro Koki. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you next time.